leaders at the G7 summit have issued a stark warning about the global economy. In a joint statement, they agreed global growth remains below its potential and that there are still risks of weak economic development. They also expressed concern over the large-scale movements of refugees that need a worldwide response. Well, speaking after the summit, the Japanese Prime Minister highlighted some of the challenges.
The greatest concern is the possible contraction of the world economy. The amount of world trade began to decline from the latter half of 2014, dropping nearly 20%. It's the biggest decline since the 2008 financial crisis.
Well, Mayu Yoshida is in Ishishima, where that summit has been held, and joins us now. So good morning again, Mayu. So the Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has wrapped up his final news conference. Did he consider the summit a success?
Well, hi there again, Kamali. Well, I guess so. Now, Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said the leaders spent the longest time discussing the global economy, and they came up with an economic initiative. Now, he said the G7 shared common concerns about falling equity markets, severe situation the emerging economies are facing, slowing demand in China, and Abe said there is a risk of the global economy falling into crisis if an appropriate measure is not made. So Abe said the G7 leaders agreed on a mix of policies which are fiscal, monetary, structural to boost global demand. But they also said monetary should not be the only game in the market. And there's also some frustration that the leaders couldn't find a complete common ground on fiscal spending. And turning to the Japanese economy, there's growing speculation in Japan that Prime Minister Shinzo Abe could delay this planned sales tax hike for the second time following the G7 summit, where leaders talked about the weak economy. But anyways, Abe said he had a very fruitful discussion. And regarding the refugee crisis, Abe said the G7 leaders agreed to offer global help to the refugees themselves and also to step up efforts to alleviate pressure on countries that are hosting a large number of refugees. Kamali.
Okay, well, Mayu, as we talk, we're looking at a picture of David Cameron addressing the media, no doubt talking about possible British exit from the European Union. But what have the other leaders had to say on the final day of the summit?
Hi there, Kamali. Well, other leaders are actually holding their news conference later on. So there's David Cameron and also Germany leader Merkel. She also held a news conference, and also U.S. Barack Obama also held a news conference last night. Now, first of all, regarding Europe, Merkel said all the leaders briefly touched on the risks of the Brexit. They all want Britain to remain in the EU because it could, if the Britain leaves the EU, it could threaten the European economy. And Merkel also said the summit was a success, so hopefully other leaders will follow her comments. And meanwhile, U.S. President Barack Obama, he talked about North Korea and terrorism risks last night. As for terrorism, he said that the Islamic State is a greater risk than Pyongyang. And about North Korea, he said the risk of Pyongyang selling weapons or nuclear materials could be reduced because he's seeing improved response from China. And speaking of China, the G7 also issued a warning on maritime issues in the East and South China Sea, but did not mention a specific country. All right, that's it from me. Back over to you.
Okay, well, Mayu, thanks for joining us there from the G7.